So, some very interesting stuff in there. Again, big picture, the main takeaway for me is that this, in a different way, echoes a lot of the criticisms that Big Swole had about the company after leaving, right? It's coming from a slightly different place, obviously, as she's still with the company. And I actually think it's pretty brave of her uh, to put stuff like this out there, given that, I mean, as far as I know, she's still contracted with AEW. To the best of my understanding, she is going to be back at some point or should be back at some point. I don't know the exact date on her contract expiring. It's possible that her contract might run out while she's over in Japan, as she was, I believe, a day one acquisition for them. But it does bring up stuff that, like I said, Swole mentioned before, as far as the structure of the company. And, the positives of it being that there's a lot of creative freedom and a lot of freedom for whatever you want to do. The downside of that being that if you're not somebody that the company is prioritizing, it can be rough. I mean, and I didn't even really consider it when Swole was talking about all of that. But yeah, like if you're someone who's already having a tough time in the company and you speak perfect English, you're still at least going to be on much better footing just trying to communicate than you are if you're just struggling with the language and the culture shock and just everything. And it is really wild to think about just how much the company has changed from day one. Like when the company first started, if it wasn't for their foreign talent, I don't think they would have been able to exist at that period of time. Like the joshi wrestlers were basically like holding up the entirety of the women's division. You had some British female talent there that is no longer there as well in B Priestley, Sadie Gibbs. This company has changed a lot in a very short period of time. And personally, it's a little disheartening because, again, a lot of those Joshi wrestlers really, even ones who I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of at first, like Riho, definitely turned me on them very quickly. Absolutely foundations of the division. And it's going to make me very sad if we hit a point a year from now where talent like Riho and Hikaru Shida is no longer in the company at all. Also makes me particularly sad because I was really looking forward to the return of Maki Ito at some point. And I think reading this article pours a little bit of cold water on my hopes and aspirations for that. End of the day, maybe it's hoping for too much to expect Joshi women to, as a whole, get a solid push in a major US promotion. At the end of the day, if we want Joshi wrestling, maybe we should just be watching Joshi wrestling and putting more of our support behind groups like Stardom and TJPW and Ice Ribbon. But yeah, not to get too negative. Again, we did have a great episode of Dynamite last night, but I do think it's important as a fan to look at the bigger picture and listen to voices like Sheeta's and acknowledge that there might be some issues in the company. And hopefully, with our voices, we can do something to encourage them to fix some of the issues that are going on.
Very well said. I definitely appreciate your thoughts on that wholeheartedly. I definitely can see where those concerns and what she's talking about came from. I particularly was I was offended at the way that the second half of her title reign went. It got to the point where it felt like they forgot she was there because they were too busy throwing all this juice behind Britt and Rosa. And there were, I think one time I counted 3 weeks in a row we didn't get Sheeta on TV, and she was the women's champion. And yes, it is a valid point that language barriers and also a matter of not having permanent residence in the states can complicate a significant push for an athlete. You know what the answer is? I don't really know. I think that it definitely doesn't help because right now, at this point in history, with international travel being such a complicated kind of issue as it is, I don't really know if there is any good answer. I hope that AEW doesn't lose that connection to the Joshi universe because I quite enjoy seeing people like Shida and Maki Ito and Emi Sakura and Riho given all this exposure to a huge American audience. But at the same time, if they're not going to get that fucking appreciation from that American audience, then you know what, bro? Fuck it. Because I watched Joshi. I watched Stardom. I watched TJP. I can just go catch those girls when they're in their own home environment and are feeling good and are getting real significant pushes. I would prefer that the rest of the world enjoy it with me, but at the end of the day, what matters the most is that these girls are, for one, happy and healthy and making their goddamn money.